don't ride for nobody, no badge, no crew. Truth don't play favors, it just come through. I don't take sides, I take time and review. So to put it, let the context break through. If you clean, that stamp stay true.
What happens when the so-called cloth protects one of the most heinous crimes? We've heard stories about this before, where people who are part of the clergy have their own church and they have all that stuff, and yet in their personal life they do some really illegal and vile things. Well, we have such a case, of course, innocent until proven guilty, because this case has not gone to trial just yet. But the details of the case seem to suggest something that has been an ongoing problem in what we call the church today.
In the months leading up to December of 2024, ex-members of the church began to speak out on social media about alleged sexual abuse from senior members of the congregation, including Gary Jr.
You see, back in 2024, an individual was accused of doing some things way back in his youth to his sister.
The first accuser to approach law enforcement, believe it or not, was Gary Jr.'s own sister.
What's his name? Right on the table. Going in. On the table, guys.
A man by the name of Gary Kesey, I believe is his name. Gary Kesey is a member of a mega church in Ohio. Now, his mother and his father were the installers of this church in Ohio. And since then, his mother has gone on to become the commissioner over the entire entity, and she pays out for the police and all that stuff. That'll come in handy later in the story when you get to the details of it. However, his sister had gone to the cops to tell them that, hey, my brother had behaved inappropriately with me back in 2001, between then and 2011.
His sister told detectives that she had been raped roughly 50 times. When asked where the crimes took place, his sister said that it was within the family home and nothing ever occurred at the church.
Now, they hadn't done anything about it because there seemed to be a, how did they phrase it? Conflict of interest. Now, I'm not quite sure how you have a conflict of interest when there's someone coming to tell you that an individual that they know personally, like family members, has done some untoward things sexually to them. In this case, it was indeed the R word. She had said that he had done it to her over 50 times.
Roughly 50 times. When asked where the crimes took place, his sister said that it was within the family home and nothing ever occurred at the church.
I'm going to let that number marinate for you. 50 times. Now, the biggest issue is that when she did go, this had been going up and up and up in scale. And when she finally divulged what was going on, the police department decided that they were not going to bring charges. Why? Because, like we said, the mother had a role in a lot of the governmental functions, including payouts of payroll.
Gary's mother is a Knox County commissioner. She oversees law enforcement budgets. Not only that, but she's also friends with Knox County Sheriff Daniel Weckeser, so it's to no surprise that the department didn't take the case on.
Now, one of the people that was at the head of the time was a man named David Waxer, and he was the police commissioner. Now, he was the one that initially said, I'm not going to do it due to conflicts of interest.
The Knox County Sheriff's Office ultimately refused to take on the case due to a, quote, conflict of interest.
Why did a conflict of interest? Well, because I know the family. So instead of handing it off to somebody else, he handed it up. And where it went to was the DA. Now, the DA said, no, I can't do it either because of what? You might know what it is. Conflict of interest. And that was a man by the name of Dave Yost.
Attorney General Dave Yost, who oversees the Bureau, recused himself and the department from the investigation because he was close with the family.
Dave Yost said, no, I can't do it. I know the family. And the case went nowhere. Subsequently, some people signed a petition for his removal. I think they got like 2.5 case signatures on it. It didn't do much to make anything go forward. But as of 2024, things started to move. Now, there was an investigation that went on into the case as to in the background and without him knowing about what was actually. And while they were doing that, about 40, I'm going to say that number again, 40 women came forward saying that they had the same issue with this man.
Over the next several weeks, they conducted interviews with more than 40 witnesses, including Gary Jr.'s sister.
Now, subsequently, you have to start taking things into consideration. It's not just a family anymore. Now it's some other people. And all of them seem to suggest that he was doing it while they were children.
One stated that Gary Jr. began to molest her in November of 2006. She would have been around 8 years old at the time, Gary Jr. 17.
Now, mind you, he was underage, not in terms of minor 13, 14. The latest one was while he was 17 years old. In fact, there's even one case that they are still investigating that might suggest that he was doing it in his adult age to children under the age of 15.
He was alleged to have continued to abuse the victim until 2011 when she was 15. That meant then he continued to offend as an adult.
If that turns out to be true, then you might be looking at something even more heinous, considering that the mother and the father seem to want to protect their son. And I don't understand how they're not protecting their daughter, but she didn't seem to have much of a bone with them as much as the son. But I would think that she probably is going to try and include them in it for the cover up as well. I don't know where that part's going to go, but we do know that the son was arrested. Now, in about February of 2025 is when they really started to dive into the investigation to see exactly what was going on. And in that time, they did a whole bunch of interviews, and they interviewed the people that said they were victims. People said that they thought that this person was a victim, people that suggested that he had some very interesting behaviors. So they did their full investigation. By April of 2025, they went in to arrest him. To be specific, April 25th was when they finally arrested him.
Come out! Come out! All the way through! Take it easy. We're good. What happened?
They showed up at his house, guns drawn, quite a few of them, vehicles all over the lawn. It was quite a spectacle, and pulled him from this house and took him to the station, which when they decided to go and ask him some questions. Now, if you look at his demeanor, you'll see something kind of interesting. He seems to suggest with his body language that he doesn't know what's going on, although it's not to the fullest extent. And he wanted to talk to the cops about stuff. And the very first thing he did was try to switch over to his sister as to why she might be coming up with this theory.
Everything becomes a crazy public thing. So if I tell you my sister's being abused by her husband, if I tell you she lived with her parents for 3 months last year.
My sister is going through all kinds of issues, and she's been abused by her husband, and she's been this and she's been that. What about her? And the investigator said, no, we know all about that. We already talked to her. She's already divulged all that. But I think you know what we want to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm just telling you, that's
I know. The backstory of all that stuff, I already know.
Yeah.
I already know about that stuff. But I think you know what I would like some questions.
I would like to know those. I mean, I can answer your questions.
And he said, well, I probably want to talk to you about that, but what about my lawyer? And all of a sudden now the lawyer becomes important, which is good. You'd want to talk with your lawyer before you say something stupid and get yourself incriminated. But you were quite happy to speak before when it was throwing your sister under the bus. You see, some things just kind of come out. You don't really have to hide it. It just came right out. Here, my sister, this, and as soon as it's about you, lawyer. So they eventually put him behind bars, and they set it for a $2 million bond. Now, initially it was going to be like a $5 million bond, but his lawyer said, well, he's not a flight risk. He's not going to take off. Trust me, he'll hand over his license, his passport. We're going to put an ankle monitor on. They did all these precautions, and they gave him a $2 million bond. Now, that was back in 2025.
Gary's bond was set at $2 million. Then he's been ordered to make no contact with the victims, is to wear a GPS monitor, and has to surrender his passport and driving license to the court.
Now, recently, they have come forward saying that they have a case that was supposed to be coming in May, and they've lowered the bond by $1 million. So now he subsequently submitted his bond, and he's out now with a $1 million bond, but the case is supposed to be pending in May. While we don't know what's going to happen to the case in May, the biggest issue we can see is this. If there was a conflict of interest before, just because there is a case ongoing now, is there a possibility of possible wrongdoing within the system itself, or a cover-up that might possibly happen? In fact, when they interviewed the lawyer, there was a couple of people that asked him, how can we be sure that this is going to actually be a fair trial? And his lawyer, of course, would say, no, trust me, I know this particular judge. He's a very, very fair man, and trust me, he's very fair. The instant I hear stuff like that, I'm like, you're a little bit too sweet on this judge. It might not be as fair as we might be thinking. But again, it has not gone to trial.
I've been around him. He's a super fair jurist for both sides. I mean, we've all been in front of judges who, for one reason or the other, may exhibit a sense of bias. Not this guy.
But the bigger question that's underlying in this particular case isn't necessarily the judge or the cover-up outside. It's the question of how this can happen within the confines of what people consider a safe space, the church.
In the months leading up to December of 2024, ex-members of the church began to speak out on social media about alleged abuse from senior members of the congregation, including Gary Jr.
We've not seen this be an abnormality. This has been almost an ongoing problem now with people who have this certain type of power where people come to them to divulge certain things, and what they do is abuse that. They use their information and their power struggle to impose on them something sexually. In this case, it didn't happen at the building, it happened in the home, and it was to his siblings, and in some cases, young people that were coming to the church. Now, in case you may not or may know about Faith Life Church in Ohio, that's the actual entity we're talking about. It was started again, like I said, by his father and mother. His mother's name is Drenda, I believe, and she was and still is the commissioner down there in Ohio, Knox County to be exact. The problem here might be if there are other people that have had this happen and they're aware of the cronyism that's going on both in the church and in the government sections that they're affiliated with. Are they unwilling to come forward because they fear nothing will happen? They may fear that, well, we're not going to get any justice that way. I'll just swallow what I have and be done with it and just go to my grave knowing that somebody abused me as a child and I can do nothing about it. I think this leads us to make sure that we who are unaffiliated with the activities that happen to these young girls, that we speak up. When you see something, say something. We'll be keeping a track on this particular case to see what exactly happens to him. It is a matter of whether or not he's going to see the light of day again. That's actually part of what is going to be considered here. And again, he's 11 counts of F1 rape. So it is including minors and activities with minors and coercion of minors and subduing of minors. So it's a big case. It's not something small. He's not facing some trivial little thing. It's not trivial at all. It's very big. And we'll see what happens. And we'll keep you posted on where the outcome of it rises. But again, this is a story that's going to be ongoing, and it's possibly happening in many more churches as we speak. If you see something, say something.
One wrong move turn the present into the past. I don't ride for nobody, no badge, no crew. Truth don't play favors, it just come through. I don't take sides, I take time and review. So to put it, let the context break through. If you clean, that stamp stay true. If you foul, that show up too. No miss, no spin, no cover up hype. Everything judge and play.